Reminds me of you. All right. Uh, can we skip DBQ today? Move on to the next era because I have tomorrow morning off. Yeah, tomorrow morning off, so I can go through my past your homework, so we can dig deeper to your DBQ everything. How's that? Hey, wait a sec. If that works for you, please type a one. Thank you. Let's skip DBQ today, and we work on the next era in the knowledge part, and then we will talk about. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Ria. Sunny, you okay with that? Thank you. Oh, you guys are the best. Such an angel. I'm so behind of you guys' homework. All right. So this is what we stopped yesterday, right? So we had the Great Depression, and we talk about the culture in 1920. So this is another wave that KKK raised up, right? But this time they target not the African Americans, but the immigrants, right? Okay, now the booming 20 was about to end, and that's mainly because not the stock market. Stock market only affect small portion of American people, 5% top. It was the failure of American banking system, right? We'll stop there yesterday, right? So New York Stock Exchange crashed in 1929. And then that time, Hoover just assumed the office. You know, he really had bad luck. In 1928, after Coolidge, Hoover won the election, right? And Hoover, he actually was a self-made politician, should say that. He actually was a philosopher as well, okay? But people blame him for Great Depression. That's a little bit not fair because he did not cause it, but something he did not do was try to save it, okay? The reason why he didn't do so was because he was a classical economic theories supporter, right? When Coolidge was the president, 1923 to 28, right? That was in the apex of the booming 20, all right? And Hoover was actually the Secretary of Treasury in Coolidge's cabinet, right? And Hoover witnessed this 5 years, you know, golden age, right? This booming 20. And that was the time Coolidge really adopted classic theory. So classic theory is basically equals to this concept called laissez-faire, right? So laissez-faire is, you know, when economy market is so strong, the government should just yield, all right? So let the market regulate itself, all right? And the less government regulation, the better the market will grow, all right? So for 5 years, Hoover witnessed that this laissez-faire really work. All right. And of course, during this 5 years, there are like, you know, minor fluctuation in the market. That's normal. That's what I call business cycle. Okay. So this fluctuation proven to be, you know, resolved and fixed, repaired by the market itself. So the government basically just a bystander. Okay, like a cheerleader, go, market go, right? So Hoover strongly believed in this classic theory. So when Great Depression happened, Hoover believed, just give the market time. You will repair itself, okay? Normally, yes, but Great Depression is not a supply side issue. It's a demand side issue, right? So people, for one thing, couldn't afford to consume because they lose their jobs, right? And the price level goes up. When we say Great Depression is what? It's when the inflation rate goes way up. At the same time, unemployment rate also super high. So can you imagine that? So people started to lose their job, okay, because factories started to shut down because people cannot afford the luxury lifestyle as they used to, right? So suppliers, firms, business, factories, one after one, they started to shut down their plants, okay, or out of business. So when that happened, people gradually lose their job, right? So you already struggles in this hyperflation. At the same time, you lose your job, right? So there's no way you can make a living. So those homeless, right? Homeless people, and then the rely on this soup kitchen, right? So government's welfare, okay, this subsidies, everything. So that additionally place extra burden to the government, right? So the government already lost this tremendous tax revenue, and now their expenditure expanded, right? So the whole country was dragged into this vicious cycle, right? That's Great Depression. So, so in this case, if you really want to fix the market, you need to work on the demand side, encourage people to consume, and that will encourage the supplier to produce, right? And then they will start to invest, and then you will have what? Tax revenue, right? But Hoover believed, no, the market will recover itself, right? So that make the Great Depression worse. He did not start it, but his do nothing, laissez-faire, make the Great Depression worse, all right? So to a point, people started to make fun on Hoover. Have you ever heard of this term? Hoover blanket, Hooverville, Hoover flag. That was the terms invented that time, all right? Anybody knows about that term? What is Hoover blanket? Do we know? Jeffrey, have you ever heard of that, about that Hoover blanket? Jeffrey?
No, I'm also eating lunch right now, so I can't really talk.
You are what?
Eating lunch.
Oh, bon appetit. All right. So Hoover blanket is what? We mentioned this homeless people, right? So how do they survive? They just live under other people's roof or in the park on the bench. And at night when it's cold, they just grab this tossed newspaper and they just cover themselves with this newspaper. So this newspaper on this homeless people is known as Hoover blanket. All right. And Hooverville is what we do know. Central Park in New York, right? It's the lung of New York City. Huge, really huge. And imagine that the entire Central Park was packed with homeless people. So here you have a historical picture right here. That's not a house. That's, temporary, just, between two trees, and you use this newspaper or cardboard to build like a wall. All right. And that's your temporary home. And you see how these kids, they don't even have shoes to wear. And the entire Central Park was like that. So the Central Park was nicknamed Hooverville. So Hoover became a negative term that time to criticize, to mock their president, Hoover, right? Anyway, but Hoover, during his 4 years of presidency, all his paycheck, he actually donated to the charity though. Okay, so overall, he was a good person. Just, his belief in economic theory did not really work for this Great Depression, right? And on top of that, he also made this a wrong assumption. He used this high tariffs policy, try to protect the domestic industry. That theory actually was correct. But this high tariff means what? You leave a high tariff upon imported goods, right? In this case, the imported goods lost their competition in the American market, right? And that would somehow encourage American people to consume domestic produced products. And Hoover hoped that through this high tariff, this protective tariff, that could stimulate the GDP, okay, for the domestic industry. In theory, it should work, but America not just import, America also export, right? So when you leave a high tariff upon imported goods, you are actually denying this importing goods their competition in your own domestic market, right? So when America's exporters ship their goods to Europe, to the rest of the world, people would take what we call revenge, right? So revenge tariff. So you undermine my GDP because your exportation also contribute to your GDP. We keep saying GDP, GDP. GDP refers to whatever you produce within your own territory, right? Not whatever, okay? Final goods, but easy concept is the production within this territory within a given period of time that will contribute to your GDP. So it's gross domestic production, right? So when you after the production, you sell to whoever, that doesn't matter as long as it's produced in your your land, right? Then so this high tariff under my foreign states GDP. So when America export, the foreign states would take what we call revenge tariff, right? And that will hurt America's exportation, right? So again, another vicious cycle, right? So as a result, it dragged the entire world into this Great Depression, right? So Great Depression started in America and soon dragged the entire Europe in, and then Asia, okay, you name it, okay? So become a world economic crisis, right? Also, Hoover uses during Hoover's presidency, he utilized this high tariff, tried to protect domestic industry. That makes sense, but backfired. And then this production and unemployment rate, he did not really try to fix the problem. And previous war debts, place more burden to the government. So the government, even if the government really tried to reach out to the public, right? The government found themselves like the hands are tied. They did not have additional, budget to do so. And then too much credit. Remember this one? Radio, right? Not television yet. Radio, right? That leads to Americans what? Consumerism, right? And this consumerism offer consumers credit. So consumer can enjoy now and pay later, right? So pretty much everybody's in debts, okay? Today, I just read a piece of news. Average American citizens, their debts is 22,000 US dollars in debts, okay? And if you have saving, you're awesome. You have a debt free, you have saving, you're awesome, right? And then vets from World War I, this one. These soldiers, they fought in World War I, right? Some of them sacrificed on the battlefield, and they will receive a pension from the government. But for those injured, during World War I, the weapon was highly industrialized, but the medicine did not catch up. So during World War I, if soldiers got a wound or injured on the battlefield, the most common way of treatment would be like amputation, right? So like a shot on the arm, just amputation the entire arm, because you don't want any infection. If there's an infection, there's no way you can save the life because of shortage of medicine, right? And shortage of blood, all right? So quite a lot of soldiers came home from World War I without their leg, without their arms, right? So they couldn't fit into this labor force anymore, and government must, provide for these vets, right? So that's all the burden placed on Hoover's administration, and plus his belief in classic theory. So if you look at that, this is a real GDP, okay? Booming 20, right? And then look at that, 1929 dropped big time from 1,000 billion to merely 700 billion, all right? And then later on, Roosevelt's New Deal helped a little, but it's not until America joined World War II, you see the GDP started to recover, boom up, because it's wartime economy, and the government's physical spending mobilize the economy in the market, right? So GDP surge right up. And then if you look at the unemployment rate, this is a percentage of US unemployment rate estimated, and this is percentage during the Great Depression, right? So it's like 1929, right? All of a sudden, you see that unemployment rate rose up from 5% to 22%. 22%. What concept is that? Every 5 Americans, one out of job. So that was beyond acceptable. Normally, if a government could control the unemployment rate to within 6%, you can say this economy is very healthy. You can even claim it's a full employment because we have nature unemployment, like a volunteer, right? You want to take a break, right? So live on your saving and travel around the world. You're unemployed, right? But not because the market is bad. It's because you choose to give yourself a break, right? Or you are in between jobs, right? So you want to change your career path, right? Like I've been teaching for decades, but all of a sudden, if I want to become a juggler, I could, right? Follow your heart, right? Transcendentalism, right? But I need to practice how to juggle first, right? I need to find someone that willing to help to hire me to work in the circus, right? So between the transition, I will become unemployment, but it's not because of the economy, the market is bad. It's because I choose to do so, right? So also we have like a seasonal unemployment, right? Like a ski trainer. What do you expect this ski trainer to do in summer? Nothing, right? So that kind of unemployment is nature, okay, natural. So that does not count as market failure, right? So if you include that, and that's up to like 6%, right? Then the economy is already very strong, all right? But the Great Depression, look at that, okay? GDP drop big time, unemployment rate surge big time, and price level, okay, is almost hyperinflation, right? So Hoover's 4 years did not really help to save the market. So when he ran for this second term in 1932, he was defeated by FDR. Okay, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He is related to Theodore Roosevelt, though. They are distant cousins, right? So FDR, okay, he set the record. Remember, ever since George Washington, American president tried to follow this tradition, right? Serve 2 terms and retire, right? Even if the Constitution did not limit presidency to 2 terms, but the Constitution actually did now through the 22nd Amendment. Now, doesn't matter how great a president is in America, 2-term max, okay, 8 years total. And but FDR, he served 4. He did not finish the 4th term, but he won the 4th election, right? So that's FDR. His New Deal, okay? New Deal is 3 R's, named after his last name initial, right? RRR, Roosevelt. So this New Deal focus on these 3 R's. Number 1 is called recover, okay, recover. So recover what? All these homeless, they lost their house to the bank. Why? Because they could no longer honor their payment, right? So in this case, bank, they show no mercy though. They take away your house and you need to move, okay? And where to? Well, find a park, whatever you can, right? Subway station, and just live there, okay? So FDR's first R is called recover. Help this homeless or homeowners, previous homeowners, right, to reclaim their home, their house. So homeowners loan cooperation financially support this homeowner to secure at least a shelter, okay, a roof, a wall, right, so they can live in. That's his first policy called recover. Second, relieve. So once people are moving to their house, they no longer live in the park, they still need to find a job, right, to pay for their monthly expense. So relieve what? Relieve this unemployment rate. All right. So Works Progress Administration, WPA. This is an example of WPA. This will be a typical example of government's fiscal policy. So government directly spending money to keep the market running. Okay, is it, wait a second, where did the government get the money? Bond, right? So national debts, right? So FDR's administration started to issue these bonds, right? And then by borrowing money from the public, and the government could have the budget to run this fiscal policy, right? So it could be like, replacing the surface of the road, or like, build bridge, build park, library, okay? Do you know the tourist site called Mount Rushmore? Mount Rushmore was actually a physical policy project during the New Deal. So it's the mountain that USC 4 presidents had right there. And that was a physical policy. If you look at that tour site, like, why? Why do we need this project? It's not like, Chinese feng shui, right? No, but it was there. So this project, okay, could create thousands of jobs. So once people started to work, they have job, they started to make income, they started to spend money to consume, right? So that's WPA, okay, relief. And then reform. So the first two policies, recover and relieve, they were the policy to deal with the current situation. So solve the problem first, right? Solve the current problem. But reform is to what? To learn the lesson and really make the policy better, regulate the market in a logical way. So you can prevent this kind of situation from happening again, in theory, right? So reform, reform what? Now we know it's all about this, overconsumption, overproduction, and this over credit, everything, right? So in this case, and the what? The banking system failure. That's the worst case, that worst situation that really dragged America into Great Depression, right? So in this case, there are a whole bunch of reforms. FDR has to, make sure he regulate all this industry, right? So the first reform is banking system. After all, it is the banking system failure that lead to this Great Depression, right? So reform the banking system. How? Again, it's related to economic concept. So bank has this multiplier, money multiplier effect, right? So bank plays a so important role in this entire economy. All right. So in this case, the bank, they would kind of keep the money running, right, through people's deposit at the bank, and the bank in turn will loan out the money, right? But now, what happened? What went wrong in this banking system before? It was because the bank would loan out every single penny that we, the clients, deposit at the bank. And that lead to this run-on bank, right? So when people started to have this worry, concern, right? They believe that their money is no longer safe at the bank. They rush to the bank and demand to withdraw their money from their banking account, right? So that lead to this banking system failure. And you say, what's wrong with that? Well, because when people demand their money from their bank, the bank did not have any reserve. All right, it's called reserve requirement. First of all these funds that the bank utilize, all right, to granted loans to business or to individual, okay, those money were not bank's assets to begin with. That's their debts, right? And then, but that's the the major way banks can make money, right? By charging this loan at a high interest rate, so they can make the profit between the interest rate gap, right? Anyway, so during the Great Depression, banks that would loan out every single penny they could, so they can make bigger profit, right? And then FDR's banking reform system is what? Required reserve, right? Meaning that starting from this point on, when banks receive deposit from the clients, like if I deposit $100 into the bank, how much out of this $100 the bank can loan out? Before the reform, the bank can loan out 100, but now cannot. It depends on the reserve ratio. So if the reserve ratio is like 20%, the bank can loan out $80 out of this $100 deposit the most. All right. So this reserve ratio is depending on the government's policy. Could be somewhere between 5 to 20%. All right. So by doing so, FDR can prevent this run-on banking system from happening again, right? At least when people go to the bank. The bank has enough reserve to honor this demand deposit, right? So that's banking system. And then we have an industrial reform. Reform what? Production. So during this great booming 20, business, they don't care what they produce, right? Whatever the market demand, that's what the business produce, right? And to a point, they believe this market is so strong, they will produce, in a greater quantity, right? So as a result, you will have surplus. So when the surplus happen, it's gonna crash the market. That's called market failure, right? So industrial reform is, now government is gonna regulate all this industry tight, tighter, right? How? Regulation, right? So starting from the raw material, if you want to produce, you need to reach out to the government and kind of make a proposal what you're going to produce, right? If your products is not essential at that point, right? Not really, and very unlikely you will get this natural resource you need, right? So industrial reform is reforming the industry in the quantity and products the firms they produce, right? And reform in farming, okay? What happened to the farmers during the Great Depression? Well, all of a sudden, the demand in the market shrink, right? Because people, when the booming 20, people may overconsume, right? So you don't need 5 meals a day, right? But because you can afford it, right? So you may have like 5 meals a day, or you enjoy all these fancy meals, right? That you don't really need. So farmers, they produce more, right? But when they started to experience this Great Depression, they realized something is people no longer can afford what they used to in quantity, right? So the demand for this farming goods started to decline, right? And then that will affect the farmer's total revenue. So total revenue is what? Is your market price times the quantity you can sell in the market, right? So the quantity sold decrease, right? And market price remain the same. So in this case, well, the total revenue definitely gonna shrink, right? And the farmer's logic is very simple. They believe, well, if we want to maintain the same revenue, what should we do? Since the quantity demand, right, shrink and then lead to this market price decrease eventually, right? So market price decrease and the farmer's logic is very simple. What if we started to produce more? So if we produce more and then we can have a larger sum of a total revenue, right? So produce more, hopefully the quantity sold will increase and then we can have the same level as our total revenue before, right? So that's the farmer's logic, okay? But what they did not realize is once they increase the quantity supplied, they actually drag down the market price even more, right? So in this case, what happened? Their total revenue decreased again, right? So reform in farm is government's intervention, regulation, okay? Set up what? The quota, how much you can produce, and intervene with the market price, okay? What the market price should be, all right? So with this reform, FDR managed to, okay, sort of kind of save this farming market. He did, okay? And then after this reform, okay, that kind of stabilized the market, right? And that's the first 100 days what FDR did. The first 100 days. Why 100 days in particular? Ria, do we know why 100 days? Ria?
No.
Because FDR, he just won the election in 1932, right? And he inaugurated himself into the office in 33, right? And if you wanna find out, is this presidency gonna be a strong president or like a weak president? You can find out in the first 100 days. How? the first 100 days, because the new president is gonna come up with all these policies, right? So all these policies, the president have some kind of policy agenda, but to exercise this policy, the president need the Congress support in finance, right? So if the Congress granted the budget proposal from the president, then you can foresee it's like, this president has a good relationship with the Congress, or this president is a strong president. So the Congress had no other choice but to grant it this policy, this budget, right? So how do we know? Basically, you can tell in the first 100 days. So you will see the newly elected president, they will try so hard in the first 100 days, right? So his first 100 days, he came up with this, recover, relief, reform, okay? And he proved to be a, strong, tough president, okay? So from this point on, note to yourself, FDR, he's a Democrats, right? So Democrats is known for their conservative political ideology, meaning what? Democrats used to be promote the idea of small government, low taxation. All right, small government, low taxation. But you see what FDR's policy is not small government. When we say small government is what? Government's role in this market, in the society, okay, tend to be minimized, okay? Minimized, so it means what? Set the market free, granted people's, freedom, liberty, everything, right? And not to intervene with the society, the market, no, not much. That's called small government. So in that case, what does the government do? Pretty much nothing, right? No, the government will devote it to protect people. So it will enhance what? Enhance this social security, right? Enhance the social stability, right? And target crimes and secure your border. So prevent foreign attack, right? So small government, they will honor, grant more freedom to the society, and then focus on what? Focus on this national security, social stability, all right? So that's an ideal small government. That makes sense? So Democrats used to be that kind of government, so small government and low taxation. But FDR right now, it's not. FDR is a New Deal. Pretty much regulate the society, right? And spending money to control or regulate the market, right? So he is a Democratic president, but somehow he adopt Republicans' ideology. See that? So this is the time later on we will call the rise of new right. So FDR, Democrats, supposed to be conservative, small government, the right, all right? Conservative equals to right wing, all right? But this Democrats no longer is like, promoting this conservative concept, right? So they are gradually shifted from the right wing to the left, all right? From right to left, okay? And then how about Republican? Republican used to be big government, high taxation, right? But look at Coolidge, look at Hoover. These two presidents, they are both Republican, all right? And they're laissez-faire, right? It's not really echoing their Republican ideology. That makes sense? So you will see starting from the 1920s, and then this Great Depression, and later on World War II, these two political parties somehow gradually switch their political ideology. So Republican used to be big government, high taxation, but now it's gradually promoting the idea of small government, low taxation, right? So they become the new right. the new right. Okay, so when you see this term called the rise of new right, you can trace it all the way back to the 1920s. Three presidents in particular: Coolidge, Hoover, Roosevelt. Okay, that's the transitional stage. And then in the 1960s, you will see JFK, Lyndon B. Johnson, Democrats, right? They started to even adopt this big government, high taxation. Like what? Lyndon B. Johnson, his Great Society, that demands a big budget from the Congress, right? So here we have the rise of new right. Okay, and now we know why. Because FDR, during his campaign, he said, we cannot do something. If this policy work, we continue. If it failed, we come up with something else. But either way, we cannot do something. We have to do something, right? So this is his campaign policy. We must do something, right? So in this case, he did New Deal, right? And this New Deal policy definitely is a big government trend, right? So the first 100 days, he started to adopt this, strong government behavior, right? And then the second New Deal is, after he secure his, power over this Congress, and then he started to focus on this, long-term reform. So long-term reform, including what? National Labor Relations Board. So want to make sure, okay, labor's right, it's protected, right? And labor's, job opportunity is offered, right? And then Social Security. He started to promote this policy called Social Security. So Social Security is what? When you start working, you will know what that is. You pay personal income tax. On top of that, on your paycheck, you will see the deduction from your Social Security. So the government is like, forcing you to save money, okay? Because look back, this consumerism, right? People not only did not save money, they also overconsume, right? And as a result, American general public, everybody's in debts. Is that? So this Social Security is what? The government will take proportion of your paycheck, right? And deposit in this Social Security, right? And once you deposit enough and you decide to retire, and then you can start to claim payment from your Social Security, right? So even after your retirement, you still have some income, not much, but can provide you for basic need. That's Social Security, all right? So FDR started to do so. And this is Social Security, as long as you work, you pay every month, right? So since you pay every month and you won't demand it until you retire, right? And what average age Americans retire? 55, right? So if you started working at 25 and you retire at 55, you contribute to the Social Security for 30 years. So the money you are living in this Social Security for 30 years, the government can use it to invest or to use the money to what? To support family need. So with the Social Security, government would be more flexible to help out to the family in need, right? But that time, Social Security does not cover minority though. So what do we mean by minority? The Social Security only applied to the white, all right? But later on, it will be reformed. Now the Social Security covers the whole citizens, all right? If you're a green card holder, you're also covered, okay? So as an American citizen or a resident, okay, you can have this protection from Social Security, right? So that's FDR's New Deal, right? All right, so his New Deal started from 1933 and all the way to 36. That's another election year, and people love him, okay? So he won the second term, right? And then 39, World War II happened, right? So he won the third term because during this midst of war, it's not smart to, have a new president, right? That's why he won his third term. And then 44, he won his fourth term because that time America was already involved in this World War II, right? So now let's talk about World War II. Again, war itself is not important. What's important is the logic, right? Why World War II happened? Ria, what World War II happened?
I'm not sure. I haven't learned that yet.
Okay, all right, but from your general knowledge, why World War II happened? Hitler, right? Remember remember the Treaty of Versailles really humiliate the Weimar Republic, right? And on top of that, this Great Depression also dragged Germany into this chaos, right? So to a point, people started to protest against this Weimar government, right? So in this case, it created a window of opportunity for Adolf Hitler to rise up. So Adolf Hitler uses nationalism as a weapon to provoke German society and use his own strength. He is a very good public speaker, though. If you look at this documentary film, you'll see Hitler's speech. And if you really study Hitler's speech, you see how he incorporate with his body language and facial expression and how he manages his tone. And that everything together is very provoking, right? And especially he know exactly what the people are angry about, okay? And he used that to appeal to the public's emotion, anger, okay, revenge, right? He was actually from a middle, not really middle, like average family, not middle class, but average family. And he was not a student that is motivated in study. Okay, he liked drawing. Okay, he liked art, and his dad was like, no, this is not helping for your future. So his dad used his connection and secure a job for Hitler at the custom office, but Hitler believed that this is not the life he wanted, so he quit a job and moved to the city and rent a very tiny apartment, right? And then he started to make a living by drawing this portraits for people, right, or sketch, right? And whenever he saved enough money, you know how he spent his money? He used his saving to buy ticket to watch opera. So if you've paid detailed attention, you will see Hitler's speech, all his movement kind of show the shadow of this opera actors, right? That's how he trained himself to be a public speaker, right? So the rise of Hitler and define this Treaty of Versailles and provoke Germanic society to revenge, right? So he started to claim the lost land bit by bit, right? And when he did so, what happened to the Triple Entente, the France, the Britain, the America? Well, these Triple Entente, they were busy dealing with the post-war reconstruction and then the depression, right? So they did not really want to engage at another war, okay, because they just try to recover from the previous war. So that really enabled Hitler to advance his plan, his plot, okay. So every time he kind of violate the Treaty of Versailles, the Triple Entente was just like, okay, this is the last time, okay, don't do that again. And Hitler would say, sure, I won't. And he did it again. And the Entente was like, I'm serious, right? This is the last time, okay, don't do that again. Hitler was like, okay, but he will continue to repeat, okay, and break his promise. So to a point when he invaded Poland, that's the time the Entente, Triple Entente, realized we must do something. Okay, but it was too late, Okay, so when Hitler invade Poland, okay, and that's the time World War II took place. All right, and before he invaded Poland, Hitler was not worried about France. He was not worried about Britain, because he came to realize both France and Britain, they have their own problem. All right, so they're kind of, paper tiger now. Yeah, they still believe they're superior, but in reality, nah, Hitler was not afraid of them anymore. But Hitler was afraid of two states though. One is America, the other is Soviet Union. Okay, so he actually signed this non-aggression pact with the with Stalin first, and then agreed that Soviet Union and Germany would not attack each other, right? On top of that, they would together took down Poland. So Soviet Union would invade Poland from the east, while Germany invaded from the west, and they would divide Poland into half. So Poland just just build their own state post World War I, but now gone again, right? So that's the time the Entente believed they need to declare war upon Germany, but too late. All right. So fascism was formed in Italy by Mussolini, and the two major powers in World War II. One is Axis, the previous Central Power, right? That includes Germany, Italy this time, right? Japan, see, Italy and Japan, they were a member state of the Triple Entente, but now World War II, they switched side, right? And Russia, okay, switched to ally in 1941, okay, because Hitler break his promise and raided Russia. And that's the time Stalin started to appeal to America and Britain, right? And the allies, the former Triple Entente, right? UK, USA, Russia as well, right? What happened to France? Where is France? France was occupied right away at the beginning of this World War II. All right, so Germany raided France, okay, did not give France any time to prepare, and they take down Paris, they take down the Versailles, just like that. Okay, so France was under Germany's control right away. So at that point, Britain was actually fighting along, right? But until America joined the war, right? So Germany attacked Poland, and UK, France claimed war, but France fell to Germany right away, all right? And America did not participate in the war until 1941. So 1941, what happened? Japan happened. Japan, okay, so Japan bombarded Pearl Harbor, right? Mainly because America placed this embargo upon Japan, all right? Because Japan rise up to this imperialism member as well. But Japan, they had the industrial know-how technique, right? So they could build this advanced tank, okay, air, this what is it? Air Force planes, right? And warship. But Japan did not have the resource of oil. Japan did not produce oil, right? So in that case, Japan had to import oil from whom? From America, right? And then when Japan invaded China and conducted this brutal massacre in Nanjing, right? And the whole world was in shock. And America couldn't, an ocean away, and America was dealing with their own depression, right? So America did not really, take any military action, but America did practice embargo upon Japan. So cut off Japan's oil resource, right? So that dragged Japan to what? To adopt two policies at the same time. One, they sent their ambassador delegates to America to negotiate. And on the other hand, at the same time, started to plan the attack on Pearl Harbor, because Pearl Harbor produced oil, right? So the bombing in the Pearl Harbor lead to America's joining the war, right? So when America joined the war, and it was the turning point already. So America joined the war, and then the whole war shifted, right? And then in 1942, Midway Island, okay, America claimed the first victory over Japan, right? When America joined the war, America focused on this Pacific war zone because their target is Japan, right? Not really Germany. Germany did not really do anything to America, right? But 1941, the very same year, Hitler raided Soviet Union, right, Russia. Then that kind of forced Stalin to join the Allies, right? So German had to confront two sides, right? But this France was already, fell to Germany. So German had to confront the west side against Britain, and at the same time had to confront Russia in the east, right? And west is easy. What Germany had to do is to secure the coastline, because there's a English channel to separate these two power. But to the east, Hitler could focus on the east, right? Because this land border is easier to attack. So Stalin called for help from America. So now they're both the member states in this allies, right? So kind of makes sense. Stalin asked America to open a second war zone in West Europe. So if America really opened the second war zone in West Europe, mainly France here, right? That would somehow distract Germany, right? And that would ease the situation for Soviet Union, right? But America said, no, we did not have enough human power, okay, to have a second war zone. We cannot concentrate to deal with Japan in the Pacific war zone. So that's the time Stalin started to have, these doubts that did America really treat us as an ally? Big question mark. So later on the Cold War era, you can say actually the conflicts between America and Soviet Union started here, 1941. And not to mention America was anti-communism, right? Because America practiced capitalism. So now they're allies, that's because they have a common enemy, Hitler. That's it. Once Germany surrendered, this former allies, they turn on each other. And that's the beginning of the Cold War era, right? So anyway, back to America in the Pacific Ocean. So America claimed the first victory, Midway Island, right? And destroy all 4 Japanese warship, all right? And then the Allies in 1943, they successfully landed in Sicily and take down Italy. So Italy surrendered, all right? And then 1944, America joined this second war zone in the West Europe. And under the leadership of MacArthur, all right, the Allies successfully made this Normandy landing, all right, and save France from Germany's occupation. And then from France, they marched to Germany and took down the capital. And before the arrival of his allies' troops, Hitler committed suicide, right? So the turning point, you can say, is the D-date, okay, the D-Day. All right, so 1945, busy year. FDR died on April 12th, mini stroke, right? And then the very same month, Hitler committed suicide on April 30th. And then before he committed suicide, he actually appointed a successor, his right-hand man, and told his right-hand man, you never give up. You keep fighting for this arrogant, pride, glory. But to that point, there's really nothing to fight for. Okay, so May 9th, Germany surrendered. Okay, so pretty much the European theater was done. Okay, but the Pacific, on the other hand, Japan did not surrender though. So Japan continued to fight, even though Japan knew they stood very minimum chance in winning the war, right? But Japan, and it was an imperialism spirit, a Bushido spirit, right? So you will fight till the last man standing. You will never surrender, okay? So to a point, America believed, okay, the only way to end this war quick and to save unnecessary death, okay, to spare the soldiers, okay, from unnecessary death, they're gonna, play their secret card, the ace card, right? That was the atomic bomb, right? So August 6th, America dropped the first atomic bomb in Hiroshima, right? And Japan did not surrender though. Even though Japan witnessed the destructive power of this atomic bomb, Japan did not surrender because Japan believed such a destructive bomb, America only had one. Okay, but 2 days later, America proved, no, we have more. So August 8th, America dropped the second atomic bomb in Nagasaki, right? So in this case, Japan is like, that's enough, okay? We surrender, all right? So Japan surrendered on August 15th, and that marked the end of World War II, all right? So that's the World War II, all right? So cause is the rise of Hitler. The aftermath is what? The aftermath is this. The world was divided into two parts, with Eastern Europe being occupied and controlled by Soviet Union. Okay, that's one word, communist world. The other part is what? The allies to America, all right, the capitalist world, right? So Western Europe, America, okay, and what is it, China at that time, okay, part of this first world member state, and then Eastern Europe, Russia, okay, not Japan, Japan surrendered, okay, they're the second world, okay, so the whole world was divided into two, all right, and that marked the beginning of Cold War era, right? So aftermath is number one, the Allies established occupation administration in Austria and Germany, right? So once again, Germany and Austria being defeated, right? So this time, the Allies want to make sure there's no chance for them to rise up again, all right? So they have this occupation administration, right? So they actually established their office and took over Austria and Germany's government to their direct supervision, right? Also, Germany lost a quarter of its pre-war territory, right? And this time the Allies is like a determined, they're gonna punish Germany to the most, make sure there's no more chance for them to rise back up, right? So Germany lost a quarter of its pre-war territory to whom? To the Allies, right? Also, there's an effort to maintain peace, right? Remember, after World War I, there's a establishment of League of Nations, but did not really work, right? So this time, UN was established, United Nations, okay? And United Nations, they have their government, Congress, not really standing army though, but they have their own membership fee revenue, so they could mobilize, assemble a temporary UN army when necessary, right? And then also underneath this UN government, there are different departments aiming to keep world peace, right? Including this one, Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. Why? The address directly to the Nanjing Massacre, also addressed to the concentration camp for Jewish community, right? So UN said no more. So this Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? And then the rest of the Europe was also divided into Western and Soviet sphere of influence, right? So that's the aftermath of World War II. And then this end of World War II, it's the same time mark the beginning of Cold War, right? So what is Cold War? Cold War is this beginning year, it's open to debate though. You can trace it back to 1941 when Stalin appealed to America for help. America refused, right? Because the Cold War started that time already. They did not confront it with each other because they have a common enemy, right? Germany, right? But you can also argue it's 1945. Okay, at the end of World War II, right? When actually Japan had a plan to surrender. They could surrender to America. They could also surrender to Russia, though. Okay, but they wanted to surrender to Russia, but this 2 atomic bomb forced Japan to surrender to America. So Russia, actually Japan already sent their delegates to Russia, negotiate this surrendering term, right? But as a result, Japan surrendered to America. So that was also a conflict between, okay, between this America and Soviet Union. So Stalin was like, America did that on purpose to prevent Japan from surrendering to Russia. Okay, and Stalin accused that America already showed the intention to dominate the world after World War II. So they kind of figure out a way to undermine the power of Soviet Union. All right. So you can claim that Cold War began in 1945, or you can say Cold War began in 1946. Why? Because that was the famous speech delivered by Winston Churchill, the Iron Curtain speech, right? Through the speech, it's kind of, announced to the world. Now our world is divided into 2 parts. An Iron Curtain has dropped, okay? Or you can say 1947. 1947 is when America launched this Marshall Plan, right? So what is Marshall Plan? This is General Marshall, right? He was of course, war hero, right? And so this project is named after him. Basically, it's like this poster, right? So Marshall Plan is America started to aid its allies to reconstruct after World War II. So whoever agreed to Americans' term is gonna receive American aid. What's the term? You gonna swear you will never took Soviet Union side. You will not incorporate communism in your country, right? Number 2, you will import certain goods from America. Okay, so if you agree to the terms, then you are our allies, and welcome aboard to this boat called Europe. Right. So Marshall Plan was a plan to aid this Western Europe to recover and reconstruct after World War II. Right. So America is the captain. Right. And then this Britain is on board, right? And pretty much all the Western Europeans, they were on board. So that's the beginning of Cold War Marshall Plan. Why? Because Russia was not really invited, okay? Being the former allies, but Russia was not invited. And that provoked Stalin big time. And Stalin was like, we did not need your money, okay? We can reconstruct on our own. All right, so the split between America and Russia was like a official, final. Okay, so that marked the beginning of Cold War. All right, so we're gonna move on to Cold War now. When we talk about Cold War, okay, this is APUSH, right? We're gonna focus more on domestic policies. Cold War started in 1946 and 47. It's up to you. Okay, and then ended when 1991. 1991, right? So 1991, why? What particular 1991? Because that's the year Soviet Union, under the leadership of Mikhail Gorbachev, he announced the dissolve of Soviet Union, right? And that means America won, and that ends Cold War, right? So from, let's say 1946, right? So 46 to 91, that would be 45 years, right? So within this 45 years, it's the competition between America and Russia, Soviet Union, right? America and its allies versus Soviet Union and its allies, right? And the competition in what area? Well, number 1, okay, is who possess more warhead, nuclear weapon. So it's a competition to see who has the capability to produce more nuclear weapon. All right, that's number 1. Number 2 is who has a better, and advanced technology to conquer the space. All right, that's number 2. Number 3 is who has more allies, who has more influence around the world. All right, that's number 3. And number 4 is what? Number 4 is which ism is better for the economy, communism or capitalism, right? So pretty much that's the competition between America and Soviet Union. All right. So America had to set their agenda, right? So the reason it's called Cold War is because of what? These two major powers never engage with each other in any physical war. Okay. So there's no battle. But both players, they're ready to attack if necessary. So that's called Cold War, right? But there are what we call proxy war. Proxy war is what? Since both power had their allies, right? Their influence all around the world, right? So sometimes you will see like a Korean War, right? It's the North Korea versus South, right? And North Korea was under Russians' influence, turned into communist society. And South Korea, under America's control, capitalism, right? So the war between North and South Korea is known as Korean War. It's a war between communism and capitalism, right? With their respective supporters behind this war, right? So this kind of war is what we call proxy war. Proxy war. All right. So we do have proxy war during this era, but we never had a physical war between America and Soviet Union, right? But we had a few moments that was so close. America and Soviet Union could have started World War III, but they managed to negotiate, okay, and dial down the tension, right? Okay, so that's the background of this Cold War era, and we're gonna follow the presidency in this Cold War era, okay? And the first president was Harry Truman. Truman was the vice president of FDR. And FDR died in 1945, right? In April. So Truman assumed this office, right away. And he was like, criticized big time because his previous president, FDR, was so strong, such a strong president, and supporting rate super high, right? So in comparison, no matter what Harry Truman did, the general American would not be happy. You're not good enough. Look what FDR did. You're not good enough. Okay. Learn something from FDR, right? But he was not a bad person though. But also he was responsible for dropping this 2 atomic bomb onto Japan soil, right? So his name was pretty controversial, okay? Because on the earth, only state that being bombed with nuclear weapon was Japan, right? That time. So Truman Truman assumed the office, right? And he right away issued this Truman Doctrine. So in this era, you will see pretty much every president had their own doctrine, okay? So this Truman Doctrine, what is about? Truman Doctrine is to announce the principle, okay, the policy that America was adopting in regards of this Cold War and fighting against communism, right? So basically it's what? Containment. We are not a stranger to this term, right? Containment. Lincoln also adopted this containment, all right? So Jeffrey, do you recall what is containment?
If I remember correctly,
Mm-hmm.
this was like the thing where like Lincoln was talking about how the South would have like a few years transition.
Mm-hmm.
Was that like when they the slave thing where like it was like the children of slaves would be free, but the slaves wouldn't. So then like they would still have a few years to transition from
Yeah, that's Lincoln's containment, right? But
yeah.
containment, right? Right away, refers to what? But to contain the
Yeah.
current slaves, right, in the South, and make sure they would not spread out to the north or west, right? So
Yeah.
that yes. So use the logic to explain Cold War's containment.
Containment. He
Mhm.
oh, okay. So then in this case, Truman didn't want communism to spread as it says in the as it says in the presentation. So basically, it's like he hired the other countries to make sure that it doesn't spread. Is that sort of it?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
get it. Right. So containment is like to contain the pre-existing communist countries into the the current scale, right? So as long as the Soviet Union did not intend to spread out communism, right, to Western Europe, America would be okay, right? So what happened, right? We are not going to do anything to change it. But if you intended to spread out this communism influence to Western Europe, that's exactly where America would fight back. So contain the influence of the kind of influence of the communist influence, all right, in the Europe. Okay, so that's the containment, right? And this containment policy will be the core policy for the presidents to follow, right? So that's containment, right? Well, so Truman Doctrine institute the policy of containment against communism. Also, $400 million appropriated for aid Greece and Turkey to fight communism spread. The number looks pretty familiar, right? That's 1946 that he announced this Truman Doctrine. Remember, Carnegie sold his company to J.P. Morgan in 1901. That year, in 1901 versus 1946, it's at 5 years ago, right? Carnegie already sold his company to Morgan at this exact same number. So now you know how rich Carnegie was, right? So his personal access, just the company, equals to this government financial aids to Greece and Turkey, right? Anyway, so we have $400 million appropriate to aid Greece and Turkey. Okay, why particularly Greece and Turkey? What's the logic? Why? What's so special about Greece and Turkey? Because Greece is in the Balkans, right? Turkey, Minor Asia, right? So these two are closer to Soviet Union, right? In the south. So if both Greece and Turkey turn into communist, then America would lose control in Asia. Because Turkey is the gateway for Europe to enter Asia, right? So if Turkey failed to communists, then you just wait and see. Saudi Arabia, right? And then you have Persia, Iran, right? And then you have all this Central Asia, right? Afghanistan, you name it, right? And Pakistan and India, China, all the way through, okay? So to America, to secure the gateway, the choke point, right? It's kind of going to play this, what is that, chess, right? You want to block your rivals, way, right? So they have no move, right? So that's exactly what America was doing. So block the way, okay, to for Soviet Union to expand to Asia. So once Turkey and Greece maintain Americans ally, and that would play as like a buffer zone or like a wall, a defensive wall against Soviet Union, right? So that's why $400 million particularly doled to Turkey and Greece, right? And Cold began, if you say 1946, that was the famous speech, right? Winston Churchill, he delivered a speech called Iron Curtain. So Iron Curtain dropped, divide the world into two, right? So what else did Truman do? Okay, he had this National Security Act, 1947. Okay, by the time Cold War began, America's Great Depression already recovered. Not just recovered, the economy boomed up. How come? Because this wartime economy, right? So the government will utilize all this. Remember World War I, right? It's already total war, right? Government control all the production, control the market. World War II too, right? So American government control the economy, control the market, and determine what to produce, right? And that time, first priority definitely is your military supply, right? Weapon, gunpowder, tank, airplane, uniform, food, and blood. Okay, because now World War II, the advance in what is it? Advance in this medicine, okay, and medical surgery. They can transfute the blood to wounded soldiers at the battlefield, right? Also, again, women participate in labor force as well, right? And that time, America's productivity was like amazing because it's not the supply side problem that lead to the Great Depression, right? It's the demand side. So now all of a sudden the demand is back. Why? Government demand, wartime demand, right? So in that case, the previous idolized factory reopened, but instead of produce like produce what fashion clothes, now you're producing soldiers uniform, right? Instead of producing like bread, fruits, you're now producing canned food, so you can supply the soldiers in the front line, right? So this kind of production almost completely reduce the unemployment rate. Remember the worst time, it was 22% unemployment rate, right? And during World War II, when America participated in the war in 1941, the employment rate dropped down to merely 3%. You see, so people start making money. And then where did the government get all the money? Again, borrow, right? So American government borrow money to finance this war, all right? And people are more like, World War I already has this propaganda, but World War II even more, right? So people are willing, okay, to play their faith in the government. Okay, you want to borrow money? Okay, we're chipping whatever I have left, right? And still we have some, major business district remain, they're tycoon. So their business was affected, but not like, enough for them to declare bankruptcy, right? Anyway, so Americans' depression ended during World War II. So New Deal helped a little, but it was World War II that really ended Americans' Great Depression, all right? And then push Americans' economy to the new height, right? So Truman, during his presidency, he ratified this act called National Security Act in 1947. So created this CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. So what do? This still exists today, right? So CIA is kind of an investigation, okay, collecting evidence and clues to prevent unnecessary communist attack, okay, from happening. So CIA would have like, they're more like a spy, okay. They'll try to kind of turn enemies men into their ally, okay, and then through that they can gather military information, right, and take it one step ahead to win this game, right? So CIA created targeting communists, right? That's why later on in American history we have this era called Red Scare, right? The Red Scare. So people started to be suspicious and nervous about perhaps my neighbor is a communist, right, and a spy from the Soviet Union, right? Okay, and then that's the era. A lot of individual or like a civilian even, all right, being accused of a communist, right? So that's the CIA's job, to target communists and create the National Security Council, right? So National Security Council, again, is targeting the communists, right? And secure the border. Okay, and that time you want to enter America, they're gonna vet you big time. Okay, what's your background? What's your political ideology? All right, and recognize the military under the Department of Defense head. So before that, before this National Security Act, military is military. Department of Defense is Department of Defense, right? But now they combined it, and military is under the Department of Defense, control. So it will be easier to mobilize the military when necessary, right? And after World War II, people began to move away from cities, right? Why? Because urban sounds more ideal. You have more room, more clean air, right? And especially with the mass production of Henry Ford's Model T, right? So people now can afford to live in the suburban area and work in the city. They can drive, right? So in that case, suburban area, first of all, cost of living tend to be a little bit lower. On top of that, what? You have more room, more space. And if you just feel like, it's a good place to raise a family. Your kids have, the street safer to ride their bike, to play football, right? Practice, everything, right? So that's the growth of suburbs, right? Also, cause of this migration, right? We have mass production of automobile, and then the road system, right? And government policy. Government actually encourage people to move to a suburban area. Why? So they can have the whole urban city for industrial development, right? And then so the government actually subsidized this company, Levitt and Son. Okay, I don't know if you know this house, this community, Leviton. That's the time America started to produce houses by assembly line. Can you believe that? Assembly line to produce houses. So before this Levitt and Son, houses were built on site, right? So they're gonna have the foundation and build at the basement and button up all the way to the roof. But now, not anymore. They produce the house, in assembly line. How this assembly line produce window. This is door. That's wall. That's a ceiling. Okay, that's roof. All right, garden, kitchen. Okay, and everything up, including the furniture. Right, all produced in the factory. And when it's done, they shipped all these parts to the construction site. So all these workers, all they need to do is assemble the parts, like you're playing, like blocks, right? And you can build a house within like 1 or 2 hours. Just assemble them. Actually, if you go to Amazon and you go to Home Depot, they actually sell this pre-made house. So you buy it and then they deliver to your site, and you can just put them together, and you have a office, you have a petite apartment. Okay, some of them are actually pretty cozy though. Okay, so you may have like a 400 square feet, okay, for like a $40,000 pre-made and delivered to your property. And if you need hire professional, they can provide that to put them together for you. Okay, so that's kind of similar. So Leviton community, because it's mass produced, right? So this whole community, the houses are identical. Identical, right? You may get lost if you don't remember your house number, because it's identical, right? And because it's mass produced, right? So the cost decrease big time. And then people can afford to move to the suburban area and afford a bigger house in that case, right? So that's under the government's policy to encourage, to subsidize this Levitt and Son, okay, so they can build this community, right? Okay, so that's growth of the suburb. What else did he do? He signed this fair deal. Remember FDR, he had New Deal, right? So his New Deal, first 100 days, yep, done. And second New Deal did not really go all the way through because World War II happened, right? And FDR died before the end of World War II, right? So he did not really see through this New Deal. And then Henry Truman, he kind of pick it up where FDR left, right? And honor FDR's wish. So he had this upgraded New Deal, 1948, right? So what is New Deal? They want to extend the New Deal. A fair deal is the extent of New Deal for the new era, right? So fair deal is number one, increase the minimum wage to 75 cents an hour. So if you work 8 hours a day, how much you make? $6. Remember 1907, Henry Ford already paid his workers $5 a day, right? Also, Social Security was enlarged to cover more people. FDR's New Deal, the Social Security only applied to white. Now, more people, okay? And called for this low-cost housing, right, project and slum cleanup. That's the fair deal, right? So you will see the Cold War era presidents, everyone very ambitious, okay? Aiming to prove that capitalism, American system is the best, the only system that to make the world better, okay? And then 1949, we have NATO established, still exists today, right? So North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So original members only United States, Britain, France, Italy, and Portugal. But now pretty much the the entire Europe, right? So NATO, Ukraine wanna join NATO, right? So if you join NATO, if Ukraine did, they have a collective defense, right? But NATO did not want Ukraine to join this NATO because Ukraine did not qualify anyway. To be a qualified candidate member state, you must meet number one requirement. The regime is supported by the public. Number two, it's not a weak state, meaning that the country, the state cannot be engaged at war. But too bad, Ukraine already engaged at war, so he disqualified. Zelensky disqualified for the member state, right? So NATO, okay, so NATO established to defend this capitalism against the Soviet Union, right? And allow for this collective self-defense against the Soviet threats in the North Atlantic region, right? And since its creation, you will see it influenced not just political defense, but also economic and social cooperation, right? Just like another supranational organization, EU, right? Something. So this cooperation, not just economy, not just politics, but also social, right? And then the fall of the Soviet Union, right, led to NATO actually expanding membership because some former Soviet Union's satellite states in the Eastern Europe, they joined NATO. They want this, democracy. They want this capitalism, right? Because they had enough of this communist society that lack of motivation and incentive and corruption. Corruption is not like it's everywhere. So they they compare their life quality versus NATO. Okay, it's a big gap, right? But every system comes with the opportunity cost once again, right? So capitalism's opportunity cost would be social wealth gap, right? Headquarter in Brussels, Belgium, still there today. Okay, so that's NATO, right? That's Henry Truman, what he did in his 2 terms, but when he ran for the president in 1948, he wanted to run for his 2nd term, right? And people did not believe he could win the 2nd term because he was like being compared to FDR a lot, right? And supporting rate not so good, and not to mention he was responsible for the 2 atomic bombs on Japan, right? But he won the election anyway. So if you look at this picture, it's kind of funny or ironic. Look, what is that? Chicago Daily Tribune, right? Look at the headline: Dewey defeats Truman, and that was 1948. So before the election's result was reported, Chicago Daily Tribune predict Dewey would have won. All right, Dewey was a Republican, right? candidates. And there's no way Truman could have won this second term. So Chicago Daily tried to kind of the timing matters, right? So they just go ahead and run this news. Dewey defeats Trump, and they also interview Dewey, and Dewey deliver his triumph speech. It's on the paper, but when the result came out, Truman won, right? So look at how happy he was, and holding this paper say what? Okay, so he won the second term, but how? Nobody believed he could have won though. Reason is one, he was not a bad person, all right? He was actually pretty nice individual to be deal with, right? According to the news reporters. And then his campaign manager was smart. During the campaign in 1948, his manager specifically custom-made a campaign strategy for him, for Truman, saying that, Mr. President, when you do travel within the state, you don't talk about politics. You talk about people's life. Okay, so you want to generate this kind of grandpa image, right? So people will be attracted to your personality. So on the election day, like we all ready to go to vote, right? And now I say, hey, Ria, you know what? After all, Truman was not so bad. He was good. He was just like a little sweet grandpa, right? How about we two vote for him, so he won't lose too badly? And Ria probably says, sure, why not? It's only 2 votes, right? It doesn't matter. So that's how we believe, right? And everybody believes so. It doesn't matter. It's 1 vote, it's 2 votes, it's 3 votes. It doesn't matter, right? But as a result, it did matter. Okay, he won the election. And Dewey was like, what? How is that possible? All right. But he won the second term anyway, right? So that's Truman dramatically won the second term. Okay. Also, during his administration, we have the first.
Wait, if I may ask, how much did he win by?
He won by big time. The popular vote and electoral college vote.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So remind yourself, right? Your 1 vote matter. Okay. If you say no, 1 vote doesn't matter, see what happened to Truman. All right. So your vote matter. Okay. Don't underestimate your 1 vote. All right. So Korean War took place in 1940, right? If you want to say the first proxy war, I would say is Chinese Civil War, 1949, right? But no, 1945, right? So 1945 and ending in 1949, right? With the defeat of Chiang Kai-shek, his KMT, and retreated to Taiwan, right? That's the first proxy war. The second was Korean War, right? North and South Korea, 1950 to 1953, right? So this war, at first, North Korea had the upper hand, and South Korea was like the retreat, almost drawn to the ocean. But America, of course, would not allow to see Korea being communized, right? So America at that time had a general not that far from Korea, MacArthur. Do we know who MacArthur was? He was the one that the Allies troop successfully made the Normandy landing, right? And he was also the one that took over the government in Japan after Japan surrender. Okay, and he was kind of he also graduated from West Point Academy. All right, so very talented general, military leader, right? And he likes to wear this sunglasses, the Ray-Ban sunglasses, the very same Ray-Ban sunglasses Tom Cruise wore in the movie Top Gun. That MacArthur, right? So MacArthur, he was appointed by Truman to took over Japanese government, right? So American military took over, right? And then so Japan was not far from Korea. So when South Korea called for help, right? Truman appointed MacArthur, okay, to be the chief commander to lead American troops to aid South Korea. So when Truman arrived, he started to regain all this lost land. The northern South Korea, when the Korean War started, this two country was already divided by 38-degree parallel, right? So North Korea invaded south of this border, and to a point, South Korea was almost gone, almost. And then when Truman came, he managed to push the North Korean back to the north of 38 degree. Not just push them back though. He invaded North Korea, all right? And then he actually planned that since we're fighting against communism, right? And look at the time, 1950, right? So China just recently turned into communist community, right? So MacArthur actually proposed, if we are fighting against communism, we might as well take down China right now, before China grew too strong, okay? And if you're Truman, would you support this proposal? Your general proposed like, hey, since we're in Korea, right? There's a land border and we're fighting against communism. Why not just invade China, take it down? Because China just a newborn country, right? 1 year old, infancy. So Jeffrey, would you support this proposal?
Uh,
If you were Truman.
Probably wouldn't, because that would be America interfering too much in world affairs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, America doesn't like communism, yes, but like America interfering that much in world affairs is like going to make them the enemy of a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Like
Mm-hmm.
they're supporting Korea already. They already took over Japan, and then if they
Mm-hmm.
take over China too, then like Europe's going to start like worrying, I think maybe. So
Mm-hmm.
I would support that.
Of course, right? And not to mention that China at that time had Russia, Soviet Union on its back, right? So if America really approved this military attack, and that America will be responsible for starting a war, right? But aiding South Korea is a different story, because North Korea started the attack, right? And America would be like, we're aiding our allies. Nothing wrong with that. But China did not do anything to America, right? So if America invaded China, that would be like, initiate a war. Okay. So good thinking. Truman reject this proposal. But you know what MacArthur did? He went ahead anyway. He went ahead and he attacked China. That's the famous attack of what and what's that? What's the river? Yalujiang. Okay, Yalujiang. So MacArthur did not even manage to cross this Yali River. All right, and it was the Chinese national people of Chinese National Army defend this border, this river, and MacArthur did not even cross this Yalujiang, right? And because of that, he kind of openly defying his own chief commander, right? Because president is also the commander in chief, right? So a soldier, doesn't matter what ranking you are, right? You are the general, sure, but you openly defy your chief commander. That's treason. See, but Truman, despite how angry he was, he did not want to, accuse MacArthur as committed treason. After all, he was the one that landed in Normandy, right? And he was the one that also fought in World War One, both World War One and World War Two. You see, so Truman had to figure out a way, okay, to teach MacArthur a lesson, but at the same time not to provoke the general public's anger, right? So he actually retired MacArthur. So after the failure of attempt to invade China, MacArthur just retreat, and then the war ended in 1953. Okay, and nothing changed. Still 38-degree parallel, right? Till today, as still today the same. Then no, MacArthur then was like, discharged from this Korean War, and he went back to Japan, okay, to continue to oversee Japanese government. And then on Christmas Day, he was like, having Christmas dinner with his family in Japan. And somehow his friend called him and say, how come you didn't tell me you retired? And then MacArthur was like, no, I'm not. I'm still in Japan. I'm not retired. But the news says you are. Because Truman already decided he wanted to retire MacArthur, right? So he gonna hold a conference, right, and announce this, big decision for Truman, for MacArthur, right? And he also want to, show respect to MacArthur. So he said, don't call for the media conference yet. Give them 30 minutes, and during that time, you send a telegram to notice MacArthur that he is being discharged. But in the public, the statement would be MacArthur decided to retire and enjoy, family life. Okay, so kind of still show the respect to MacArthur. But what went wrong was the telegram room had a technical problem, mistake, error. So the telegram never sent, but the press did not know. So they just go ahead and release that. Right? So MacArthur was like forced to retire. He was the last one to learn about his own retirement. Okay, and then he went back to America. Right. So that's Korean War, and then we have Joseph McCarthy. Joseph McCarthy. What about him? We have an ism here called McCarthyism. McCarthyism. The fight for America. Okay. He was actually on the Times Magazine. Okay. Kind of, the man of the year. All right. But later on, he actually lost all his reputation. All right. What happened was Joseph McCarthy, he was a Republican senator from Wisconsin. Okay. And he was fully aware what American society wants, because that time the whole country was like anti-communism, right? So in that case, if you can pinpoint and accuse certain individual as being communist, and the higher rank the individual you accused, the better, because that shows how brave you are to defend Americans' capitalism, democracy, right? So in that case, he started to accuse, like, some officers, right, or like a government staff being a communist or working for Soviet Union as a spy. And he claimed he had evidence. He had a notebook, okay, and a folder, and with all his so-called secret evidence, and he would call for this media conference and make accusation, okay, upon this individual. And every time he did so, he definitely attract the general public's attention, and gradually he became this hero to defend American democracy. All right, so he was super popular at that time until he made a mistake. He accused the captain, okay, of the American Navy being a communist and working together with Soviet Union. So this time he was accusing someone in the high rank, right? And not to mention is the captain of the Navy, right? So it was like a sensational news, right? And then but Navy was like, no way, no way. Okay, if you claim so, we are going to confront you, right? So the Navy invited McCarthy to a hearing, right? A debate sort, and demand McCarthy to present evidence. And all his so-called evidence was fake. He made it up. And then with all this documents, and then everything, a whole bunch of lines were like blackout, right? Top secret. But he will keep certain keywords, indicates that, you see, even though here is missing one letter, but if you put everything together like a puzzle, you will get the full name of this individual. Okay. And just like you see social media, right? So like a one more chang, and the next one you say mo lu chang, and then you can put these pieces together, right? And you learn the full name, right? So that's how McCarthy make up his so-called evidence. So he lost the hearing. He failed the hearing because every time he was confronted with challenge question, he will come up with a different answer because he couldn't even remember what he said earlier, right? So to a point, the media started to question, are you really so confident, or do you really have the evidence at all? So the public started to have doubts on him, and further investigation revealed that those most people he accused of being communist are made up, right? So he lost his reputation, and then he lost his next term, and then he ended his own political future. And then after retired back to Wisconsin, he started to drink and become alcoholic, and he died because of liver failure, right? But ever since then, the new term being created is called McCarthyism. So McCarthyism is still being used today as someone to slam, okay, and try to destroy an individual's reputation by making up fake accusation. That's McCarthyism, right? All right, so that's our Truman. Okay, so Truman did quite a lot, and after the second term, this time the Congress already came up with this 22nd Amendment. So 22nd Amendment is what? Now, with this amendment, it limits presidency to 2 terms because the FDR broke the tradition, right? And the Congress did not want any power hungry dude to use that as an excuse and become forever president, right? So 22nd Amendment limit American presidency to 2 terms. But this is not fair to Truman because Truman, this amendment was ratified during Truman's presidency, right? So it's kind of, you change the game rule during a game, right? So the Congress said, we will give you 1 more term. If you want to run for a 2nd term, you can. This 22nd Amendment will not apply to your 3rd term because we come up with this amendment during your presidency. But Truman was like, no, thank you. I won the 2nd term, barely. It's like a pure luck. I don't think I can win again. So he retired to honor this tradition. But ever since Truman, all right, now American presidents can only serve 2 terms top. Consecutive or separate, doesn't matter. 2 terms top, right? So Trump is coming back on 2024, right? So if he does win, that will be his last term. That's it, 8 years. So you wouldn't have any chance to run again, right? So that's Truman, all right? So let's take a break and we'll come back. We're gonna move on to Eisenhower, another war hero, Eisenhower. I'll leave this page on, you can take a look, okay? And we'll come back in 10, all right? Let's take a break. Hooray, let's come back. If you're back, type of one, please. Thank you. Yes. All right. So now we move on to the next president during the Cold War era. That will be Eisenhower. He won the election because of his war hero reputation. He fought in World War II. Right. He actually led forces in North Africa, Italy, and England. Right. And Italy was an easy target for him. You probably heard whole bunch anecdotes about how Italian soldiers fought in World War II, right? And most of them are true. Okay. Like there's a whole bunch of Italian prisoner of war that managed to escape from the prison, but did not return to their own camp. They surrendered themselves to another prison. You know why? Because they believe the food at the other prison is better. Okay. So they want spaghetti and pizza, right? And while all the other, states, they were devoting to invent their weapons, right? Their war equipment, tank, everything. Italian was devoted to study, to research. Okay, what kind of canned food is better, tastes better? Okay. Anyway, so he fought in Italy, okay, and he actually made a comment about Italian soldier. Okay, if you check out his biography, it's kind of funny though. Anyway, so Eisenhower, Dwight Eisenhower, his nickname is Ike, because his last name is way too long, Eisenhower. So 4 syllables, so people just give him nickname Ike. And he rhymes. I like Ike. That's his campaign slogan. I like Ike. Right? 34th president. Okay. Signed the truce in 1953 to end Korean War. So Korean War started in Truman, ended in Eisenhower. Right? And during his presidency, okay, you started to see this social movement to begin, right? And we have this desegregation, civil rights movement, okay? And it was not like the first attempt, right? We have all this civil rights movement prior to the Reconstruction, right? So after the Reconstruction, right? So African Americans tried to fight for their civil right, okay, against this segregation stuff, everything, right? And then that time, most likely than not, the government was sided with the majority that would be the white, right, or like a business, right? But when the year come to 1950 ongoing, especially when Warren was the chief judge in the Supreme Court, things were about to change, right? Because the judge, they would have their personal ideology, right? Of course, they uphold the spirit of Constitution, but because of their political party or because of their personal, political attitude, they would have particular cases that they want to make a change, right? So Warren was one of that kind of judge, right? So he was devoted to change this, social discrimination, segregation issue. So when he was in the office during his tenure, many Supreme Court cases, he ruled in favor of minority, right? That's what we call Warren Court. And he was the judge between 53 to 69, right? But go back to Ike. During his presidency, there is a Little Rock, Arkansas riots. So what happened was, in the South, Arkansas in the South, right, still practice this segregation, right? Despite how America accused Hitler was being discriminated, right, and racist, but America back home, same thing, right? So that also explains why after World War II, this civil movement gradually received the federal government's support. And the reform is no longer just in the society, it's now top down from the federal government to come up with all these policies to support, to aid this civil rights movement. All right. So Little Rock, Arkansas, what happened? The society is still, because it's a tradition already. They still target this African American community, and the schools also were like segregated. But now the public schools, okay, they already know what the federal government's policy agenda was like, right? Aiming to deal with this social discrimination, right? So one public school, a high school in Little Rock, Arkansas, the principal started, that used to be a white student school, and the principal started to taking African American students. All right. You can imagine, okay, the consequences, right? The very first day that this high school took in 6 African American students, right? So the very first day, this is 6 African American students, took them almost an hour to just walk past the school gate, because there was like a human wall. These angry white parents, they protest, they curse this African students, right? And then to a point, it became a riot. So Eisenhower had no choice but to send troops into Little Rock, Arkansas, to ensure desegregation. See, this time it's the federal army to guard safety for this 6 African American students. So for for a month, consecutive months, these 6 students every day when they went to school, they would be escorted by troops, by soldiers, right? That's how determined the central government, the federal government, was to desegregate itself, right? They can do that for public sector, but they could not force the private business to adopt this desegregation. Okay? Because you cannot interfere with the private individual's freedom, right? And the Warren Court, we have 4 major Supreme Court cases, right, to indicate the determination of federal governments, okay, to end this segregation. So first one is Brown v. Board of Education, 1954. Brown v. That's what Brown is the delegate to represent whole bunch African American families, right? So they sue the Board of Education. Why? Because segregation, right? In their neighborhood, there was a nearby public school, K to 12, right? And that was a white school, right? But it's public, right? And they denied these African Americans kids from registering, right? And because of that, the African Americans within this community, they had to drive or walk, several blocks so they can wait for the school bus. And the school bus again have to drive several blocks to get to school. So they decided to sue the Board of Education and saying that this is denying African Americans civil rights. All right, and you remember this Plessy v. Ferguson, this 1/8 of African blood. He took this first class seat and was arrested, right? And the Supreme Court ruled that equal but separated, right? That was that time, 1880s, right? And then we have even earlier, Dred Scott. Dred Scott sued his owner, claiming that he was actually accompanying his owner to the north for business, and he was living in the north for years and returned to the south. So by the Missouri Compromise, he was a free man already, right? He was in the north of the divider, right? But that time Supreme Court ruled even more disappointing. He said, Scott, you are a slave, so you don't have the civil right. You're not a person. You're a property, right? So it did not even have the right to sue to sue your master. So that was the Supreme Court's attitude stance, but now changed, right? Warren actually ruled in favor of Brown, okay, and say that this racial segregation is unconstitutional. All right, and then we have Angel Vivertal, right? So this is nothing to do with race, all right, but this one is related to religion, all right. So Angel Vivertal was another school, public school, right? They organized a morning prayer. Okay, altogether the prayer is only like 34 words, dear God, and blah blah. That the parents, they believe this organized public prayer at the public school violate First Amendment. First Amendment protect people's four freedoms. All right, First Amendment protect American citizens' four freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of religious practice, freedom of media to reveal the truth, freedom of assembly. All right, so public school organize this morning prayer. What if your student is Buddhist? How do you pray? Dear Buddha, right? So this angry parents, they sue the school to Warren's court. And Warren, whenever he see the case is related to this, minority being oppressed, he definitely accept the case, right? Because the Supreme Court, they were entitled to select cases that filed appeal to Supreme Court, right? Because there are only 9 judges. And you know how many cases they have to handle every day? Not every day, every year. 9 judges, they handle at least 8,000 cases a year. No way they can go through everyone. So you can appeal to the Supreme Court, but it doesn't guarantee that the judge will hear your case, all right? Because they have the right to select. So it depends on the chief judge's ideology. So particular case, it may attract the Supreme Court's attention, right? So Warren, every time he saw like a minority being oppressed, that's the case, right? And then so Angel Vivertal, of course, Warren ruled in favor of the minority, right? And verdict that public school organized morning prayer unconstitutional. So that's to guarantee the religious freedom, right? And then Gideon V. Wainwright. Gideon was a nobody, okay, homeless, drunk, but he was accused of breaking and robbery, BNR, right? And there are eyewitnesses say that's him, right? But Gideon said, no, it's not me. I wasn't even in the neighborhood when this BNR took place. But Gideon, he was homeless, right, and drunk. He couldn't hire a lawyer to defend him, so he had to defend himself, right? So of course he could not compete with DA, right? District attorney, the public defender, right? So represent the people. And Gideon was like when he tried to defend himself, and he kind of bit by bit being tricked into the trap, and somehow lost the case, and he was sentenced to jail, right? When he was in jail, he started to study Constitution, right? Because he believed he has the right to claim an attorney free, okay? Because according to Constitution, right, Article 1, 2, 3, that describe government's power, at the same time their responsibility, right? And paired with the Declaration of Independence, right? All men are created equal, right? And endowed with unalienable rights, right? By their creator, right? In amongst which is life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, right? And Gideon claimed, I got nothing, okay? And the Constitution indicates it's government's job to protect the people, but you fail to protect me because you fail to defend me. So that's why I ended up in the jail for a crime I did not commit. So he appealed his case to Supreme Court, and he knew that Warren has the the intention, right, the trend to hear this kind of case, and Warren did it, right? So it's a minority being oppressed, right? So Gideon claimed that American government supposed to defend its citizen, okay? That's their job, their responsibility. So Warren actually ruled in favor of Gideon. All right. In that case, Warren overruled the previous court's ruling and then demand a second trial on Gideon's case, okay, BNR, and then even demand the state government to provide a an attorney for free to defend Gideon. Do you know what attorney the state government ended up providing? The state actually provide this, like, 5 stars, all right? This is super attorney for Gideon. It's a BNR case, but this attorney, he was like, never lost a case in criminal court, all right? Criminal court is like murdering, embezzling, okay, all this. So he's like a super attorney. And he arrived at the courthouse. Of course, media was already there waiting, right? Because it's the very first time the government actually provide free attorney to defend accused individual. And this this attorney arrived at the courthouse driving a Cadillac and wearing like Armani suit, carrying LV suitcase, right? And everything is like so luxury, right? And to defend the BRE case. All right, but of course, it's, the state government want to make a case, right? Indicate that the government, their policy agenda, right? And of course, with this attorneys present, right? And Gideon was ruled, it was verdict like a not guilty, okay? And that's why, in America, whatever the Supreme Court's ruling is what? It become a precedent. So precedent is not necessarily it become law, but it will set the example for the judges to follow in the future, right? So Gideon and Wainwright set the precedent, and that's why in America right now, you are entitled to an attorney, right? So the policeman arrest this criminal, you have to Miranda this criminal, right? And if you watch any kind of law and order, TVs or movies, you will see the policeman always said you have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, the state will appoint one to you, all right? And you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you at the court, all right? So all this are from this era, all right? That's called Miranda right, right? And when this Miranda right was become law, including the civil rights, right? And all the policemen, they have to recite this phrase, because if they fail to Miranda the criminal, all right, and the arrest will be illegal and the criminal will be set free, and you cannot arrest him or her again for the same crime because you have conducted an illegal arrest. So that can all be traced back to this era, okay? And the other one, Griswold v. Connecticut, also is a landmark case in Supreme Court, right? So this case involved like in the Connecticut statute that prohibited any person from using any drug, right, medical article or like instrument for the purpose of preventing conception to avoid getting pregnant, all right? So Greenwood v. Connecticut is like, no, you cannot use law to tell me what to do with my own body, all right? So Greenwood v. Connecticut, again, Warren ruled in favor of Greenwood, because Connecticut, being part of this New England, right, tend to be a little bit conservative, right? Mayflower descendants, right? Believe in God. So if you're a devoted Catholic, you will follow this thou shalt not kill, okay? So thou shalt not kill means what? Not even the unborn baby. So when the baby was conceived, the very first day, it was alive already. It's alive. So if you go with an abortion, or you prevent this God's work, God creates human being to continue life on Earth. So you are kind of, acting against God's will, right? By using this birth control. So devoted Catholics, you see, they tend to have big family, right? They have many kids. But this one, again, Warren ruled in favor of a Greasewood, all right? So establish a general right to privacy, all right? So you can control your own life, you can control your own body, right? That's a right to privacy, all right? So it's nothing, it has nothing to do with the government, right? It's my life, my decision, right? So that's Warren's court. So Warren becomes so radical, right? To a point, he actually provoked this conservative judges. So is that this is another group of a conservative judge. It's like he rule this case kind of give a green light to birth control, and later on Roe v. Wade give the light to abortion, right? So conservative judge, they have this wanted for impeachment. They believe the Congress should impeach Warren, but the Congress did not, right? Because the Congress follow the government's agenda, right? Civil rights movement, right? Eisenhower, during his presidency, he devoted to extend Americans' highway system. Because after World War II, Eisenhower actually took a vacation, personal vacation, and drive on a road trip to kind of to witness the greatness of America. And when he was driving, he constantly found the end and found this inconveniency. All right, it's like, man, we have the Model T automobile. It's become like common transportation vehicle, but we don't have the complementary goods, right? That's the highway. So it's a big waste to have this advanced automobile industry. All right, so when he was in the office, he started to launch this Interstate Highway Act. So building Americans' highway extended to 41,000 miles. Can you drive now? If you're 16, you can drive, learner's permit. And road trip is fun in America, right? And the most highway there are, toll free, right? And the speed limit at least 55, but most likely 70 sometimes, right? So it's fun. It's, it's pretty, you have this like an adventure feeling, right? When you drive on a highway, especially when there's not peak hours, and you say the future is open up to you only, right? So this highway, Interstate Highway Act 1956, really established Americans, this pattern, this hobby to drive, road trip. So you see in America, young people tend to drive, and who take the flight? The elderly. Okay, elderly. So young people, you like adventure, right? So you drive on the freeway, and then you can go wherever you want. But if you take the airplane, you're actually transport yourself from airport to the other. It's no fun. That's younger generations believe, anyway. So Eisenhower promote this interstate highway construction, and that is how Americans highway system is like today. And then go back to this Cold War, right? Competition between America and Soviet Union, right? And one of this agenda was to compete who has more advanced technology in space, right? And for this agenda, Soviet Union won, wrong one, because the very first artificial satellite was actually launched into the space by Russia. It's called Sputnik, right? So Sputnik was launched into the space, successfully launched into the space on October 4th, 1957, right? And that became a big, very devastating to American society. They couldn't believe that America lost to Soviet Union. Okay, and that's the time in 1957, right? And JFK, he was a senator representing New York, Democrat New York senator, JFK. He actually made a statement to the public, to New Yorker, okay, New York citizens. He said, we may have, we may have fell one step behind in this space war, but don't use that to discourage yourself, right? And America, we can do even better. And he promised the American public that America would be the first state to send human being to Earth. I mean, not Earth, to the moon. Okay, to Earth as a satellite. Okay, and America did it. He said JFK promised this would happen before the end of the next decade. That would be 1969, right? And America kept JFK's promise, right? So 1969 Apollo, is it 13 or 11? I forgot. Landed on moon, right? So American moon landing, okay, in 1969. Armstrong, right? So that's a Sputnik, right? And that demonstrates Soviet Union's advancement in space, right? All right, and now when the time comes to 1960, television become the new forms of communication and mass media, right? So television once again changed Americans' life big time. So radio already encouraged people to adopt this consumerism, right? But that time it's only through audio, right? You can only listen to how they describe the product and how they believe this merchandise will fit you well. You must have it, everything like that, right? And then television transformed it to the next level. Why? Now it's visual. It's visual, right? Also, television influence. Television actually influenced the election in 1960. How? How can television influence 1960? Actually, it changed the result of the election in 1960. It was because 1960, Richard Nixon, representing Republican, compete against Democrats JFK. And you see, Richard Nixon was more experienced, seasoned politician, right? He was a senator, just like JFK, but JFK was too young, in his 40s, right? And Nixon was like a pretty promising, because during this Cold War era, Americans believe they need someone that is more mature, more reliable to lead America to compete against the Soviet Union, right? In that case, JFK did not seem like a, ideal candidate because he's too young and he's too good looking. And that kind of, image, right, does not really, equals to president, right? But 1960, the presidential debate was the first time that was televised, broadcast in the entire 50 states. All right. Before that year, back to 1956, the presidential debate was broadcast through radio. All right. So 1960, we already have like the 40 million homes, they had television. Homes, all right. And you said 4 people per household. That's how many audience? You do your math. I can. Okay. So in this case, you say how many people watch this presidential debate on TV, right? So whoever did not have the access to television, they listened to the radio. And then the others, they watch the TV. So whoever listened to the radio believe Nixon could have won, but watch the TV, believe JFK would have won. That's because JFK, his campaign manager, knows better how to present the best part of JFK to the audience through television. The JFK was like standing, very like still confident, but Nixon was like, laying his entire body weight onto one foot, and that tired the foot easily, and he had to switch to another foot, right? So when he was switching, it was captured by the camera, right? And he was unlucky because when you have the presidential debate, there's going to be a timing, right? So you have like a minute to address to the question challenging you from the other party, right? And so there's a clock in this room, right? And the clock is placed right in front of right at the wall that in front of JFK, so he could have like clear view of the clock, so he can control the time of his speech. But to Nixon, he had to either turn his head or move his eyeball so he could check the time. So when he was doing so, moving his eyeball, and it was captured again by camera. So to the audience, they go, "What's wrong with you? You constantly, shift your body, feels like you are anxious, and your eye was not firmed, feels like your lack of confidence or you have something to hide." So whoever watched the television believed JFK was the one you can rely on. Okay, confident, right? And that really changed the result of the election in 1960. So ended up JFK won, and Nixon had to wait till 1968, okay, for his presidency, right? So television, once again, demonstrate the power of media in every way, all right? So that's television. Fidel Castro, he just passed away a couple of years ago, actually. He was a communist-friendly leader of Cuba, right? And he actually overthrown this American-friendly Batista government. Remember Cuba? Yeah, do you recall Cuba? The relationship between Cuba and America was established back when?
I don't remember the exact date.
Give you a hint, a war. Cuba was a Spanish colony to begin with. Anybody?
Was it the Spanish-American War?
Yes. What about it?
Didn't Cuba not want to be under the Spanish rule? And then America helped it gain independence kind of.
Yeah. So Cuba become kind of, protectorate state to America, right? So ever since then, Cuba-American relationship was like a honeymoon, okay? But now in the Cold War era, it's different now. Why? Because Cuba, okay, had enough of this, Americans' dominance, okay, and especially after World War II, Cuba tried to claim, this nationalism, right? It's like your own government and you have America behind your government and telling your president what to do, right? And whenever you see this American-supported government, right, the government tend to be very corrupt, right? Cuba too, right? Like Iran too. Iran, the Shah, very corrupt, okay? So Cuba, the American-friendly government, Batista, all right? He actually enjoy this, luxury lifestyle, okay? Because he believed that he had America on his back, right? So he was not worried about, the coup or whatever. But Fidel Castro was promoted this, anti-corruption, communism is the way to eliminate this, a social wealth gap, that kind of ideology. So he had his follower, and then he organized a coup and overthrown Batista's government in 1959. That was a nightmare to America. Why? Because Cuba so close to America in the back door, and used to be Americans' ally, but not anymore. After the coup, Fidel Castro turned Cuba into communist society, and right away sided with the Soviet Union. Soviet Union so far had been checked by America. You know why? Because America had this Truman Doctrine, remember? Particularly aid Turkey and Greece with a $400 million US, right? So Turkey was very close to Soviet Union, right? Share borders, actually. So America could check upon Soviet Union, because if Soviet Union really attempt to do something, to take some action, right? America could have their, doesn't even need like a long range. Okay, it's middle range is good enough, missile, and they can take down Moscow. Okay, so Soviet Union was kind of being checked upon, okay, by America, because America had the military base in Turkey, right? But Soviet Union had nothing that nearby America, because America, if you look at America's geography strategy, benefit is like north is Canada, right? Canada was never a threat to America. South was Mexico. America demonstrated, America was, strong enough to defeat Mexico in 1848, right? To the east, to the west, east is Atlantic Ocean, west is Pacific Ocean. So America was like naturally being protected from possible, foreign invasion. So 911, that was like really a big shock to the rest of the world. It's like, even World War I, World War II, America did not, assume that kind of loss. But 911, America was like, the terrorists managed to attack with a very low cost, right? So Soviet Union had nothing to check upon America because they don't have they don't have the technology for long range missile yet, all right? And then they did not have allies that's close enough for Soviet Union to establish a military base, all right? But now they had Cuba, okay? So Cuba turned to Soviet Union, all right? And Soviet Union is like, you sure? Okay. It's like, a gift from God, all right? So they could establish their military base in Cuba, and that only require like the short range missile that can check on America right away. Direct threat to DC, right? So Fidel Castro's, turn against America really provoked America, and that really changed this agenda. Containment not working anymore, right? So that you gotta be more aggressive, all right? So that's Fidel Castro. And then Eisenhower, during his administration, America was confronted with, one crisis and after another. First is, this Little Rock, Arkansas, riots, but that one is okay, it's domestic, right? And America, federal government had already set the agenda, so that was okay. But later we have Cuba, right? Fidel Castro's crisis. And now we have another crisis, a Suez Canal crisis, right? So Suez Canal was actually constructed by Britain, okay, during the imperialism, when Britain colonized Egypt, right? So Britain constructed this Suez Canal, and that expedite the trade between Europe and Asia, because now they can take this Suez Canal, and then that can bring them all the way to the the Red Sea, and from there they can arrive in Indian Ocean, right? So Suez Canal is still very important today. Most trade from Asia to Europe, because waterway is cheaper and faster, right? So you see the cargo boat, right? They departed from the Shanghai port, Tianjin port, right? And then they will take this Indian Ocean, okay, and then through this Red Sea and through this Suez Canal, they can arrive in Europe. So you don't have to take the land road, right? Land road is slower and it's more expensive, right? So Suez Canal was pretty crucial to connect Europeans' trade with Asia, all right, also Africa as well. So Egypt, during World War II, Britain actually had this mandatory policy to force its own colonies to fight in the war for the mother country. And Egypt being, one of the British colony, right, it was kind of forced to do so. But Britain, in order to pep up this morale, right, Britain actually agreed to the Arabia world. If you enlist, you participate in this war, fight for your mother country. And after the war, Britain will grant self-determination to all the Arabia world, right? But after the war, Britain did not really honor that, okay? So to a point, you have this independence movement post-World War II. The Europeans' previous colonies, one after one, especially Britain, okay, claim independence, right? And like India, right, under Gandhi's leadership, right, 1947, this Salt March, right? And then there's a hunger strike, right? And eventually India claimed its independence. So Arabia world fellow, right? And Egypt also claimed its independence, right? So once they claim the independence, they have to choose side, right? you want to side it with Soviet Union, you want to side it with America. You have to choose. If you don't, you are the third world. Okay. And Egypt had been receiving financial aid from Soviet Union. All right. And America was like, no. Okay. We want to take down Egypt. All right. We need this allies. So Eisenhower actually had this, head of state agreement with Egyptian government, right? And then promise that America would start, launch this project to aid Egypt financially, right? And then under the pre-request that Egypt must cut tie with Soviet Union, must, all right? If Egypt did so, and America would help Egypt to develop their economy. So to Egypt, second, I don't care, okay? As long as we have help, right? So Egypt kind of sure. America seems like, richer, right? So this is an agreement between America and Egypt. But the problem was this executive agreement, not necessary, will be ratified by the Congress, right? Because the Congress possess the power of wallet, power of purse, actually. So all the money through taxation goes directly to Congress. So when the agreement was signed, Eisenhower had to appeal to the Congress for the money, right? But the Congress refused to grant this money to aid Egypt, right? So Eisenhower now looking very bad, really very bad, right? Because he ate his words, right? And that provoked the Egyptian government big time. So Egyptians said, we're gonna find a source, right? To financially support our government, right? So Egypt decided to nationalize Suez Canal, right? Once nationalized, do you know how much revenue you can generate from this Suez Canal? You're gonna pay toll if you want to use this canal, right? And this is one of the busiest canal in the world. Like you're talking about hundreds, thousands of boats line up daily, okay, to cross this Suez Canal. All right. And then if Egypt nationalize this Suez Canal, right, it's gonna damage Americans capitalism practice, right? So Eisenhower actually issued this Eisenhower Doctrine 1957, the next year, addressing to this Suez Canal crisis. So when Egyptian government announced that they're going to nationalize this canal, and that actually provoked most of the Western world. Britain came, Israel came. Each of them want to take a piece of pie of this canal, right? And then so this conflicts there, right? Almost lead to a war. We have Britain, Israel, Egypt, right, all get involved. And if the conflicts turn into war, that will be devastating. And the next year, okay, Eisenhower Doctrine is what create this partial reaction to the Suez Canal crisis, right? So the doctrine committed force to an economic aid to Middle East. That's where Egypt was located, right? Egypt is right at the border of Middle East and Africa. So America doled out this money to aid Middle East, right, to stop communist threats. Also demand all these countries to back up, okay, and prohibited Egyptian government to nationalize this Suez Canal. But some countries, including Egypt and Syria, they denounced the doctrine. So you see, Americans' dominating role is being questioned and challenged in this case, right? And so Soviet Union was like, oh, okay, that's good, okay. America is gradually losing their influence in the world. Okay, and there's a U-2 spy plan. So U-2 spy plan is what? American spy plan was shut down by Soviet Union. Okay, Eisenhower actually admitted, yeah, that's America's spy plan, right? So what is it? The captain, the pilot, all right, the pilot who spied this drive this U-2 spy plane was actually placed in Soviet Union's jail for years, and later on they have this prisoners exchange. So the American government managed to get their pilot back, right? So America once again strategically failure. Their own pilot being their plane being shut down, and their pilot being imprisoned by Soviet Union. So America, when it comes to this 1950, late 1950, early 1960, started to sense the threats, okay, and started to lose this dominant power in the world, okay, gradually, right? Then we have this is the debate. You see, it's how they stand near Richard Nixon. Look at his shoulder. It's tilting, isn't it? But look at JFK, very firm, competent. Because this picture shows Richard Nixon. He placed his body weight on his right foot, and JFK was not. All right, so evenly distribute his body weight to both feet. Right, and the clock is right somewhere behind this hosts. Right, and then so that's how Nixon lost this election, and people believe if a person don't have a confident eye, you can see a person's soul through the eyes, right? So they said, this is not a person we should trust. Okay, so they vote for JFK, right? All right, and JFK, he launched this New Frontier program. Is it? Wait a second, New Frontier. America already reached both coasts, right? Where do you want to push this frontier? To the ocean? No, this time it's to the space. Remember in 1957, when JFK was still a senator, he promised the public that America would be the first country that sent people onto the moon. So when he assumed the office, he kind of makes sure he keep his promise, right? And then, so JFK launched this New Frontier program, aid this space program, okay? And we already talked about this election of 1960, right? Then we have the Bay of Pigs in 1961. Again, Cuba now is a big headache to America, all right? And then what happened is, after Fidel Castro overthrown this American-friendly Batista's government, right? And Batista government, of course, they fled for life, right? And then they went to America, right? So they went to America, and then America, of course, took them in, right? And then CIA started to train this Batista government's, people, and try to send them back to Cuba to take back their government, right? So in 1961, the CIA believed that this Batista government is ready, so send them back to Cuba to organize their own coup, intended to overthrow Fidel Castro, right? Now, Fidel Castro in charge of the government means he also in charge of the military, right? So Batista's man failed big time, all right? So that's the Bay of Pigs, right? This is where they try to overthrow the Fidel Castro's government. So CIA approached JFK and proposed that we should send our Air Force to aid Batista and take down Fidel Castro. Okay, so once again, if you are JFK, would you accept this proposal? Send American Air Force to Cuba to overthrow Fidel Castro, or just have Batistas to confront with Fidel Castro? Ria, what would you choose? Would you accept CIA's proposal and send American Air Force?
Probably not,
Why not?
because I feel like it'll just cause more problems.
Because Cuba now sided with the Soviet Union, right?
Yeah.
And if it's Batista's men confronted Fidel Castro, it's their own civil war, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. If America really sent Air Force, that would be what? Challenging, right? Soviet Union, right? So JFK refused, okay, this proposal. And without Americans' help, Batista lost. And Cuba became communist society, okay, till today, right? So the relationship between America and Cuba started to worsen, right? Until Obama and Michelle were Barack Obama and Michelle Obama actually paid Cuba a visit. I think it's like before the pandemic, like 2019 or 18, I forgot. And that's the time America and Cuba tried to, fix their relationship, right? So that's Bay of Pigs in 1961. And then we have Berlin Wall being built in 1961. Right. So this Berlin Wall, actually, it is built by the Eastern Germany, not Western. Right. So Eastern Germany built this wall to prevent its people from fleeing to West. Okay. And the West is like, we welcome you, welcome home, right? So this Berlin Wall was built, okay, that even strengthened this authoritarian government's power in controlling people's life. All right, so that's Berlin Wall. And later on, it was fell, okay, till down in 1989. So 1989. So you can compare the difference. This side of war, so colorful, all right, and you see it's like capitalism world, and the other side is different, totally different. And this no man's zone right here, if you want to fleet from Eastern Europe, I mean Germany to West, if you manage to cross the fence here, you will be expose yourself into this open area. And look at the building. On top of the building, there are soldiers. All right, and they have this, the floodlight, right? So if they sense any movement, they will use the floodlight, okay, to search for target. If they the light is shine upon you, then that's it. That's the end. Okay, so barely had many Eastern German they tried to escape, but they ended up die in this open area. They did not even make to the other wall, right? But this is 1989. 1989, this wall was about to be torn down, all right? And they actually saved some of the bricks, okay? Because it has this, it's like a momentum, all right, to mark in the end of an era, right? And then when it was Alliance for Progress, 1961. So Alliance for Progress was another project proposed by JFK. And you can view that as a Marshall Plan for Latin America, okay? So America realized that with Cuba deflect to Soviet Union, so America needed the allies from other Latin America country more than before, right? So America started to promise this financial aid for Latin America. Okay, so it's kind of going to view that as a Marshall Plan for America, all right? But Marshall Plan was successful, but this Alliance for Progress in 1961, not so much, all right? Because by then, Latin America, they started to show this anti-American feeling, emotion, right? Because America tried to manipulate, okay, its neighboring states, okay, with their economic influence, right? So that's Alliances for Progress in 1961. Then Cuba, see, another headache for America is the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? So by then, 1662, right? American President JFK, Soviet Union's leader, Khrushchev. Okay, Khrushchev. So Khrushchev accepted Cuba's invitation and was ready to send this missile, okay, and build to Cuba and build a military station, okay, base in Cuba. And America, of course, wouldn't allow such thing from happening, right? So you see the tension right here. American Air Force kind of, so close, was ready to bomb this Soviet Union's boat, right? So it's what we call an arm race. So both Khrushchev and JFK, they confronted each other, right? And JFK was like, no, contentment is still stand, right? You are not supposed to invade Americans, water zone, all right? Not to mention, station in Cuba. And then, Khrushchev is like, but how do you explain your military station in Turkey, right? Your station in Turkey, check right at our Moscow, right? So if you want us to retreat our boat, our missile back home, we only do so if you retreat your military base from Turkey. So eventually, both leaders took a step back and compromised to avoid a possible third world war. All right. But the world that time was like so tense because they believed this. They believed that World War III could have happened, and if it did happen, it would be a missile war this time. It could be the end of human races, though. Okay, but both JFK and Khrushchev, they both took one step back and compromised. All right, so Cuba did not get their wish. Okay, and Soviet Union, Khrushchev retreat the boat, the missile, and American society is like celebrating big time. All right, celebrating big time, and then JFK was like being portrayed as like national hero, guide America through this crisis. All right, so that would be the Cuba Missile Crisis. All right, then 1963, JFK was assassinated. Okay, it's still a mystery. Okay, there's like conspiracy theory behind his assassination, but he was assassinated during his visit to Texas, right? Dallas, Texas, to be exact. And he was gunned down in his car. He was in convertible car, and the top was off. Okay, the top was off, and he was shot by a sniper, and then did not make it, so he died in this assassination. So after JFK died, his vice president Lyndon Johnson took over, and Lyndon Johnson, okay, he continued to honor JFK's agenda, the New Frontier, right? But he proposed this Great Society program, because New Frontier is to expand this Social Security, right? And then uphold this civil rights movement, right? And also the space war, everything, right? So Lyndon Johnson, honor his president, right? And continue the his agenda, right? And then launch his Great Society, okay, including the whole 9 yards. Okay, whatever JFK did not see through, it's included in his Great Society, right? And then he actually ratified this Civil Rights Act of 1964, right? So starting from this point on, Civil Rights Act, right? It made it clear in any public accommodation, racial, not just racial, any form of discrimination will be illegal, will be violating the Civil Rights Act, right? But again, it's in public only, right? So today in America, if any public place, public accommodation, meaning what? As long as your business is open to the public, you cannot discriminate. You cannot refuse any walk-in customers. You can. But if it's private, it's a different story. Like your private club, membership only, they can deny your membership. Right? A private school, they can deny. Okay, private home, you can deny. Okay, but public, you cannot. Right? So that's Lyndon B. Johnson. Right? So Lyndon B. Johnson, he was Thai, like Abraham Lincoln. So this two presidents, Johnson and Lincoln. They're both 6'4", the tallest president in American history. Okay. And that won't be your AP exam. Just know. If you know, kind of make you cool. All right. So that's Lyndon B. Johnson. All right. So let's stop here today. And your assignment today, continue to work on the DBQ. And we will talk about that tomorrow. No. Today, you are supposed to do the sourcing. All right. So whatever document you grouped, right, and choose 3 to source. That means what? HIP. So analyze HIPP. Okay. And on 3, or you can do 1. 1 is good enough. So at least source 1 document and try to figure out what historical context lead to this document. What's the intended audience? And remember, once you hit it, you need to ask yourself, why do I want to do so? How does HIPP help me to better understand this document? All right. So that will be your assignment. So today, you can do this sourcing part, right? So you can recycle your homework from yesterday, okay, and type on the same file, right? And we'll talk about this DBQ tomorrow. Okay, we're almost done. We're in the Cold War era, and after Cold War, the rise of New Right, okay, it's also in this Cold War era, okay. And then digital age, that's in the late 20th century, and that part is very light in AP exam, right? So we're cool, right? Okay, questions?
No.
Thank you. Ria, questions?
No.
Okay, and Sunny?
No.
Thank you. Okay, so I will talk to you tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Yes, tomorrow. Have a nice
Thank you.
evening. Pleasure. See you tomorrow. Good night.
I'm
Bye. Bye-bye.